Hi, welcome to the McAnulty Method. We're back again with financial expert Frank McAnulty, who's going to share his knowledge and insights with us so that we can maybe have a better and smarter financial life. Frank, good to see you.
Bill, good to see you too.
And I see we have a guest tonight, so I'll let you do the honors.
Well, Wesley Romberger has decided to join us because we were going to talk about a topic that unfortunately is near and dear to his heart. And it's not one that people talk about a lot, but it's one that people probably should talk about a lot. You know, it has to do with, quite honestly, what do you do when things don't go the way you plan them to go financially?
Okay, I'm anxious to hear this because that happens a lot.
Well, there's, most time people are thinking of, they invest in stocks. And depending on who you talk to, there's people say, if the stock goes down by 20%, it's just not just the market overall going down, but the stock goes down by 20%. Maybe you made a mistake and should just get out. Don't write it down all the way to the bottom. Make it in your mind, hey, I made a mistake. I'm just moving on. I'll take my 80% and invest in something else. Well, I've had some friends over the years and worked with people over the years that their investing involves getting involved in other businesses, which is a great way to go. All right. I had a class today in entrepreneurial finance talking about getting started in your own company. And it's one thing that no one ever talks about. What happens if the business does not work out like you think it's going to?
Well, I'm excited to hear from Wes and find out what the heck it is you do when that happens.
Well, I get to come to you guys from a voice of experience. I started out after my college degree and just worked for one of what was the Big 8 accounting firms. And ended up after doing some tax work there, working in the valuation field, and was restless. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get another line of business going. And so I decided to buy a transmission repair place of all things, because I'm a smart guy and I wanted that anti-cyclical, income when things slow down consulting wise. And I learned a very valuable lesson from it. It was something that a lot of people just don't talk about. It did not work out. Straight up, a lot of people just don't sort of plan on that. They don't plan on the failure. I didn't either. I mean, I looked at it, smart guy, college educated, all that good stuff. And I thought, this is just awesome. This is going to be a great retirement fund and whatnot. Well, it did not go that way. And so I had to learn some very painful lessons, and I sort of wanted to pass on that. I was talking with Frank about it a little bit, and I said, hey, this happens a lot. So, you follow your dreams or you're going after something and it just does not work. So how do I know when I need to get out? What am I looking for? And what should I do with that? So it really is an aspect of how do we go about assessing where we're at. And I think the one philosophy that I start with is cash is king. Now you might have heard that in your business classes, might not, but it is the essence of what we're doing when you're in a business, a new business, or in my case, it was actually a franchise business. And you have to sort of take that in mind when you're looking at it, because if you've got a business that has negative cash flow, your cash balances are depleting rapidly, and you don't have a plan on how to pull out of it, you're either voluntarily or involuntarily going to lose that asset. So to the extent that people go through and they talk about, hey, let's do a business plan, and I read those all the time professionally still, and I rarely ever see what do you do when this doesn't go well? And it's something that is a lot more common. And I think that students of business should have some at least basic knowledge on what to look for. So my number one rule is cash is king. So they have you'll have a cash burn rate. How much money are you going through, and how much cash do I have left? So that sort of gives you a time frame. Throwing numbers at it, I'm burning $10,000 of cash a month, and I got 60,000 of cash sitting there. Do the math. I have 6 months, and I think you should actually mark that on the calendar. It becomes a date. I have to do something by that date to turn this around. So, if you don't, you're not going to have an ability to pay your employees, pay your vendors. And, if you don't, then you're going to get to that involuntary stage.
Well, Wes, no new business starts out the way or goes the way you hope it to go, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
So, my thought, because I've been involved in a lot of these things like you have, and I know other people that have, that people keep putting money in until they run out. Because they know the next day is got to be good. And when you run out, that's a very bad day. So
Yeah.
my thought has always been, you sit down, like you said, you do your business plan, you come up with your numbers, and you say, okay, in 6 months after we spend $150,000, we're going to break even. Okay. Then, my thought is, because since we both know it never works that way, is that then you say, okay, if I get to that point, how much longer am I willing to feed the monster to give it some extra time? How much, it really comes down to how much can you afford to lose?
True. Absolutely. And there are loads of folks out there who will put everything on the line. I have yet to meet a skeptical entrepreneur. They are all, quite just enthusiastic, and I'm going to take over the world. And you ask them for projections, and you see the hockey stick, and you're like, yeah, okay. Now let's talk a little bit. What happens if it stretches out? Well, you're going to crash at some point if you do not plan for it. So having that hard date in mind of here's where we need to be at that point, and if we are not, then making a very honest assessment of, do I put more money in? And I got to be frank, you probably at that point should not be. Put a hard date on it and go, if I'm not at that point, then I need to get out. And then the question becomes, well, how can you get out, and what does it take to, get out of a situation like that? And it's interesting that Bill brought up the, it drops to 80 and I take my 80% and go. So you can look at part of the business and go, do I still have value? I was chasing after my dream. I wanted to do something. Are there still hard assets there? Did I have to go out and buy a lot of equipment that went with it so that there's still value there? And so I might still have some value that I can get back out. So you need to be able to understand where that could be. And then also one of the areas that I deal in professionally is intangible value. So do I have some customer lists that might be very valuable to another person? Or do I have something that might be patentable or is patented? So again, there might be some intangible value there, but I'm a firm believer that set a date, live with the date, and go with it.
Well, and you do bring up a point with saying you don't want to wait until it's absolutely over before you try to sell things, because then people can sense, well, they'll take whatever money we can give them. Whereas if it's a planned thing, well, like I said, we did it for 6 months, we did it for 9 months, we did it for a year. It's not working. Okay, how much money can we get out of this process so I can sell it intelligently and somewhat on my terms? Hey, you're actually doing yourself a favor by getting more money back than you would possibly get later.
Absolutely.
So as the sort of novice here, what I'm picking up is hope is not a strategy, and have an exit plan, which is perfect sense and a smart thing in a lot of areas of life. But yeah, I want to, so Wes, take us to the next step then. Okay, so you want to sell this thing?
We've reached our time frame. I think that's the biggest thing I've reached my time frame. I've looked at it. It is not working. Now, what do I do? So the first thing that I would say in any of that situations is you're not probably an expert in selling off stuff. And so you probably want to bring somebody in to look at the business and get an idea of what's going on. So you have an ability to go get a broker. There are business brokers out there who can go through. You probably want to find somebody who specializes in the field that you chose to go into, because they might have that ability to say, hey, yeah, there is value in your customer list. Or they might look at you and go, that's great, you've got that, but it's not of any value. And the same thing with the hard assets. You are not basically stuck in a situation where, hey, I'm trying to sell this specialized piece of equipment, and the best I'm doing is putting it out on eBay to see what it can bring. So you want to probably engage those folks, and they can get you an idea of contacts and knowledge on, like I said, on the values. Plus, also, I think it avoids some of the emotional aspects that you're probably going to be feeling at that point. I failed. I just want to get out. I'm done with this thing. And you might take that offer that you probably shouldn't have. You might have been able to get more money out of it than you initially thought. And that's a good idea to have somebody sort of helping you out there. The other thing that I'll throw in there too is, you're reaching that point, you have those dates, you probably want to have in part of the plan, how do I get myself out of a bad situation? So there's various stuff that you can do, having some of your management buy into, okay, guys, this is not going the way it planned. We had this business plan. We had this idea. We had this market we were trying to get to, but it's not working. And then making an honest assessment of what's going on. Why are we not getting there? And is it fixable? Okay, management or team here, what do we need to do to fix this? We've got a dead date, a drop dead date that we need to get to. What can we do to get to it so that that doesn't happen? And we start generating the sales and the volumes that we need. So again, I also read a very recent article that was talking about most of the failures are not on the aspect of being able to get a product sold. It's on the leadership that has not conveyed their vision or what they're trying to do. And so do we need to make that assessment? Does management need to buy back in or find where that needs to go? So I think, again, fixing the problem with a known date puts pressure back on people to get them the right answer. Again, if you are going to go down that road and you're asking for greater time, I think that you really have to, again, put a second date in there that, hey, at this point, it's done, we're finished. If you think the problem's really fixable and you have other people buying in, yes, it's fixable. So again, I think an honest assessment from that, from your advisors, from your college professors that you call up and say, hey, it's not all roses. What should I be doing?
Well, part of it goes along, your assessment fits in with a lot of venture capital these days. Say they get a business plan, says, we're going to need $1 million to get to break even. And what they'll say is, okay, what signposts along the way can we tie this plan to? So how much money does it take you to get to A? Is that $100,000? Okay, we'll give you $100,000, but if you don't get to A, whatever A is, we're not going to give you the next $200,000 to get to B, unless you have a really compelling reason why we should give you money. So, it's almost like, going with what you, how do you split your own personality to say, okay, the the confident me who's sure it's gonna happen, the definition of a real estate developer is somebody who always thinks tomorrow is gonna be a better day. And that's sort of like an entrepreneur, you're not getting into it because you're sad and depressed and aren't positive. You're like, hey, this is gonna be great. But how do you get that person on the other side of you or somebody else to say, okay, look, I'm putting this much in, it should get here. Then you have to tell me why I shouldn't put the rest in, or you're not going to give me the rest because I didn't get there. It's sort of the same thing. Here's the date. You don't accomplish it, no more money.
Well, to some extent, Frank, I think you have to be self-disciplined. You're right. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be a split personality, but I think that if you treat yourself as the venture capitalist putting it in,
Right.
You answer your own question. And it's great that you brought that up. The VCs out there do exactly that. They might commit to $1 million. We aren't just handing you $1 million. We're going to give it to you in stages, and we're going to make you earn it. And so you should function with that mentality with your own businesses as you go. And that's not to say, though, that like I said, you can burn through a lot of cash. There are a lot of companies that'll do that, break even, and then they can make a lot of money. But I think you have to be disciplined along the way and really understand where every dollar is going and how it's committed, so that you make intelligent decisions. It's not just, yeah, I hope and pray that this is going to go. And I know for myself, it came at a turning point, not necessarily a date, but I had fixed costs of $10,000 a week, and sales were $2,000 for 1 week. So that was $8,000 for that week that came out of my pocket. And that was the point that I really looked at and said, I got to get out. The 10,000 a week, 40,000 a month can chew a very large hole through your finances very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you've risked everything potentially at that point. I had a lot on the line with regards to that. So you again, be prepared. Luckily with some of my training and background, I was, but a lot of folks aren't. They don't have any idea what's all involved in a potential bankruptcy. Thank God I did not have to go down that road, but I definitely consulted with the attorneys on it, and had talked with them and had a plan in place if I had to do that. So again, I wasn't forced into it. I wasn't involuntarily looking at it. That was okay, this isn't going well. What am I going to do? So again, bringing those professionals in, and, I like to talk a little bit about that. You get into these situations. Well, okay, I've signed a lease. Very often that's not with your LLC, your corporation, you're writing it personally. And so the landlord looks not to the company, but to you, to go ahead and continue to make those payments. And the same with a lot of the vendors. They might sit there and go, yeah, that's fine. We'll accept that your corporation is liable, but we also want your personal guarantee.
Right.
And so, you can be on the hook for a lot of money on an ongoing basis. And so, with that in mind, you really have to understand, where do I really stand with all my debts, and think about some of those things like a continuing lease, and what would it look like to get out of that? Because the worst thing that you want to do is have risked it all and then potentially lose the home, or all your assets that go with it. And not only, professional or business bankruptcy, but very often personal bankruptcy along with it. And that has a longer stain on your credit at that point. And so, it's harder to come back from that. So, it's great with the younger business men or women out there that want to do this. Go for it. Absolutely. Follow your dreams. But know that, where am I? How am I getting there? What's the date I'm going to use? And what's my exit if it doesn't work? I hope everybody does work out. That's the American dream, is to find that successful business and enjoy the prosperity that we can live in. But I think that at the same time, the plan needs to be there of what if this doesn't work?
Well, I think you're absolutely right, because, even Warren Buffett has not been right every time. He's made bad investments. The key is he gets out. It didn't work the way we thought it was going to work. We'll move on. We'll find something better.
Walmart is the Walmart family. If you go do some of the history on that, he went bankrupt twice before he was able to get his, one of the largest companies in the world now. So it's not, I don't want anybody to also, I encourage folks, I look at it and I go, some of my best lessons were through ownership of that business and having to exit out. And so it wasn't a failure. I always look at it, and I now come with a much more skeptical eye when I'm doing business valuation work, and going, okay, your plan's great, but as you said, never goes as planned. So what happens?
Yep, they always say you learn more from failure than you do success.
Oh, absolutely. And Lord knows I'm a pretty smart guy now.
We all are. Another friend of mine likes to say, if you get to our age and you haven't been hit by a truck, you just know a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But Wes, this has been great, because no one ever talked. Everybody's always afraid to talk about failure, and I think that holds a lot of people back from trying things, because they're afraid that if they fail, it's the end of the world. Everybody's going to always say, "Oh, you failed. You did," and the idea has to be really, look, I tried. I got up and took a swing. The best example is baseball. You get on base 1 out of 3 times, you're up to bat. You're one of the best baseball players in the world.
Yeah.
So, but if you never get up to bat, you're never going to get a hit.
Well, and unless you're, I know finance 101, unless you're out there really putting it out there, and if your goal is substantial wealth, it's built through owning your own business. So you've got to sort of step out of that comfort zone and go do it. And I wholeheartedly encourage everybody to chase after that, but with a plan.
Yes.
That's one of the key things you mentioned, is to have that contingency plan. How do I know if it's making it or not? And how do I know when it's time to get out, so that then you can kind of regroup and try something new?
You keep enough powder dry so you can try your next idea.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Well, Wes, thank you very much. This has been great.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Frank, for taking the time to talk with me, and I hope it helps some of your students as they go forward in life. And remember, cash is king.
It definitely is. Employees don't take anything but cash when you want to pay them. That's for sure.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, guys. And Frank will do it again.
Bill, I'll see you next week.
You got it.
All right, guys, take care.